Good afternoon, dear colleagues. I'm Christina. I'm the Director of Technology, Innovation and Sustainability at SPRI, which is the Business Development Agency of the Basque government. And I'm also the lead of the group of experts Women in Manufacturing of the World Manufacturing Foundation. And I have the pleasure now to give the floor to Marco Tais, who is going to open our session. Marco Tais is professor of the Department of Economics, Management and Industrial Engineering of Politecnico de Milano. He also holds the scientific chair of the World Manufacturing Foundation, and he is the leader of the Back to the Future project, where we have been working with the Women in Manufacturing focus group. Please, Marco, if you...
So, thank you very much, Christina, and good afternoon, everybody, or good evening for those who are following us in the right time zone, and good morning to the others. The topic of women in manufacturing was something we discussed 2 or 3 years ago, right? When we met in the Basque country. I was visiting there, and we were considering the fact that manufacturing is undergoing great changes, not only because of technologies, but also because of the way that supply chains are designed. The customers are changing the way they buy, and we need, of course, to follow the transition. And we were discussing the fact that people, skills, competences are the limit for the growth and from the change of manufacturing. As I said in my opening this afternoon, technology we can buy, right? But people, competences, we need a lot of time to design them, to design competences to make them to grow. And what we were discussing was that diversity, in any sense, in any perspective, is a value, and is something that maybe will make Europe to be more competitive than other countries. And then we said, okay, diversity means not only means gender diversity, and that's why we said, why don't we create specific activities within the World Manufacturing Foundation about the role of women in manufacturing, the current role, but also the future role of women in manufacturing. I think that we have a great opportunity in coming in the future, because I used to say that digitalization, I think it's is the enabler of social equity from different perspective. Digitalization can support people to have access to roles in which they would not able to do it, but I think it is a great role and a great chance for women to be in the manufacturing sector. As I said, as I used to say, and also said in the opening, manufacturing was typically a male sector, because it means moving object, loading machines, unloading machine, and therefore what you need is muscles, right? But when we go to digitalization and the data are the backbone, you need to read data, you need to interpret data, you need to transform them into information. The new muscles that we need is the brain, right? Provided that it's not a muscle, but you know what I'm meaning. And that, I think, this is a great opportunity for for the gender balance. I wish you great consultation, discussion, and I will be sitting here for a while. Then I need to run on the other session, but we have time. And Christina, thank you for what you are doing. You managed the Women in Manufacturing last year focus group. This year again, we need to think about the next year. Thank you so much.
Thanks to you, Marco, and thanks for opening this session, but also thanks for giving me the opportunity to lead this group. It has changed my perception of my role as a woman in manufacturing, so thank you. We are going to start with one of our guests. Our first speaker is Jelgo Passin, is the Executive Director of the European Factories of the Future Research Association, Efra. Efra is an industry-driven association promoting the development of innovative manufacturing technologies. The European Union and Efra cooperated successfully in past previous EU framework programs in the Factories of the Future partnership, and only recently set up jointly the new public-private partnership made in Europe, in Horizon Europe. The organization Shelco represents is at the forefront of technology and innovation in the European manufacturing landscape, and therefore we have asked him to give us an overview of trends, challenges, and opportunities to set the scene in which women should step in with strength. Moreover, Efra has participated in our expert group through its head of communication, Julia. I would like to thank both of them for their involvement in our participation. So, Seljo, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Christina. I hope I'm online and you can see me. Yes, I see myself there on the screen, so everything works well. Well, thanks a lot to Marco, to you, to the organizers for this invitation. We normally meet at conferences, we know each other, so now this time it's unfortunately digital. I couldn't come to Chernobyl, but next year I will for sure be there. So thanks again. Sorry for the background. I'm not in the office, I'm at home. I was asked to set the scene, to talk about manufacturing and the challenges ahead. I will first present a bit Efra, where I come from, my background. So we can go to the next screen. And yeah, basically this picture represents the community we represent. Efra brings together companies, universities, research institutes, what is composed, the manufacturing community that we have in Europe. So it's certainly not only the companies, it's also the companies, but the public side, the commission, the national governments, all this is very, very important. And the aim of Efra is to create this cooperation, to have this platform at European level, in order to meet. So we can go to the next slide, which gives a bit the overview of our different roles. Our main role is, of course, what Christina already mentioned, the partnership with the European Union to implement parts of the framework program, the manufacturing part. But we are also a source of information for different actors. We produce documents, and we are also a platform where national and regional initiatives can meet and can a bit challenge each other, a bit see what are the Italians doing, the Germans, the Scandinavians. So it's also a cooperation and meeting platform for national and regional players involved in regional initiatives. And also, beside the projects that come out of these partnerships, we have also contract research and other things which emerge from this cooperation, because Europeans, they would like to meet at the European platform. We can go to the next slide. This is, in fact, the main role of Efra, why we were created as a legal entity. It is exactly with the European Commission and member states to together implement parts of the framework program, the manufacturing part. And for this, we can go to the next slide. It's Efra's role to do workshops, to get from the experts kind of the knowledge and put this into a roadmap. And these are the different roadmaps that we kind of summarized. I can show you only a picture, of course, but there are documents behind that you can check on our website. And that's the roadmap then for a partnership for 5 or 7 years. And then this is later implemented through core topics and later projects. So if you go to the next slide, probably you cannot read it, but it just shows the framework of this new partnership made in Europe. And it starts from very broad political objectives. And of course, it encompasses the technologies and enablers that we have. And you know the big topics at the moment. It's the Green Deal, it's the digitization as such, it's staying competitive in the world, of course, industrial policy, you can call it. But it's also, of course, the human aspect, how innovation is happening in companies and at institutions. And there, of course, women play an important role. But let's also be honest, if you look at many CEO seats and board of directors seats, we still have a lot in front of us to do, certainly. So the next slide shows the framework of the roadmap. I mean, it's full of technologies and details. We cannot go through it, but I just wanted to show you the framework, this bridge from bigger political aims and then down to research objectives, which then later translate in call topics. I think at the next slide, you will see some call topics. These are the call topics which are open for the moment for competition. So that's also an invitation to all European players to participate in this call and form consortia. And also, as you know, Horizon Europe is quite open. So also, since we are here at the World Manufacturing Forum, it's also possible to involve American, Canadians, Asians in these projects under certain conditions. So if you go to the next slide, that's the second invitation. We want to create a discussion and learn from experts out there. What do you need in terms of research, or what are the research needs that then we can kind of overcome together in projects? So we are doing a public consultation where anybody can provide feedback, and we are looking for all kind of information, be it on technology, but also, of course, on the topic of humans, innovation, and the role of women in this innovation process. The next two slides show a bit what was mentioned also by Marco. It's and you can probably not read this everything, but it's a kind of what industry is faced with. It's full of opportunities at the moment, but there's also certain pressure, be it competitiveness pressure from other regions of the world, or legislative pressure. If you think about the climate change debate, it's a bit both. Industry wants to embrace this, but of course, the political side is pushing industry to go even further. So you have all these framework conditions, but it's full of opportunities. If you think of new business models, to embrace the startup community, which maybe doesn't come from manufacturing, but can bring ideas and services to the manufacturing industry. So all this is a kind of where we are at the moment. And also, there's so much going on. So women in manufacturing is one topic out of many. So in a way, we are also in competition with different challenges or topics that are being discussed. And then I'm very happy that today we will talk about women in manufacturing. And I'm sure, or I'm really eager to learn a lot about this topic. So yeah, this was a kind of just to give you an overview. What are the topics in industry, and I look forward to the further discussion where we will go more into details. So back to Christina and to the next speaker. And thank you very much.
Thanks to you, Sergio. Yeah, thank you very much again for the support of your organization to our activity. For us, it's really important, as you will see from our explanation and the debate. One of the richness of our group is the incorporation of different stakeholders, relevant stakeholders, and for us, the involvement of an organization as Efra with all the advocacy that Efra has in the European landscape is really relevant. So we will really very much like to keep on working with you and to see how Made in Europe partnership incorporates gender issues, and we can hopefully work together to support also you in the incorporation of these gender issues. So now, let me introduce you. Our second speaker is Rhonda Barnett, who is President and COO at Avid Manufacturing, a Canadian integrated technology company partner to the world's top advanced manufacturers, and also she's chair of the board of Advanced Manufacturing Economy Strategy Table of the federal government of Canada since 2019, chair of the Canadian Manufacturers and Exporters from 2016 to 2018, director of Next Generation Manufacturing Canada since 2017. She's also founder of the Canadian Manufacturers and Exporters Women in Manufacturing, and also a very active member of our group. To our group, she is bringing in the experience of Canada, a pioneer country in implementing gender policies in the industrial activity. So we have asked Rhonda to tell you about this experience. And I have to say that our relationship that started 1.5 years with the first edition of the Back to the Future project with Rhonda was the first time that I realized that, it's the involvement of women is just a question of, economic, it's a matter of economic performance, is a matter of competitiveness. That is one of the mottos of our work. So Rhonda told me that in Canada they couldn't afford leaving half of the population out of the manufacturing industry, and I think that we cannot, not only Canada, but all countries working towards these new models of manufacturing required having this idea in mind. So, Rhonda, thank you very much for all that you have taught us during these 1.5 years, and thank you also for being here today to explain the gender issues in Canadian industrial policy.
Thank you for that warm introduction, Christina. I hope everybody can hear me. I'm joining you from Canada. I'm across the ocean today. I would love to be in Italy. It's one of my favorite countries to visit. The food, the wine, the manufacturing, it's so wonderful. I hope to be there next year as well. But I'm really thrilled to have the opportunity to join you virtually today and share some of my thoughts on the advancement of women in manufacturing and why it's important and how we can create the policy drivers to be successful in the world. And my hope really is to inspire you to challenge status quo and champion change. So today I'm going to talk about creating change for women in manufacturing. So let's move to the next slide. So I've spent over 3 decades working in engineering, energy, and manufacturing. So I am a woman in manufacturing, and I've often been the only woman at the decision table. And I'm working to change that dynamic one conversation at a time. And this is one of those conversations. I believe we need diverse people and mindsets at the table to tackle the most pressing challenges facing the world today. It's no longer just a box to check on the corporate list to say you have a diversity policy. We must take action, bold action. Gender equality is no longer just a matter of human rights, but as Christina said, it's also a fundamental business question to ensure competitiveness, innovation, and economic recovery right now. So let's move to the next slide. I want to talk to you about the current state of women in manufacturing through my lens. So 2 years ago, I was on the very stage that you're looking at right now in person. I was at the World Manufacturing Forum, and I was invited to share my thoughts from Canada on access to skilled talent for our sector to compete and grow. So I was on that stage with 5 men, and I was the only woman, and I was the only person talking about women being the biggest source of untapped talent for our sector around the world. So, let's fast forward 2 years, and I'm so happy to be here today having this important conversation more formally around creating change for women in manufacturing. And we have our own space now to really talk about this and move the dial. So just to give you an idea of where we're at, women are 52% of the Canadian population, and we're 48% of the workforce, so most women work, but we hold less than 28% of the high-paying jobs in the manufacturing sector. And frankly, most of the jobs we do hold in the sector are on the admin side, and we do not have our share of the technology and trade jobs that offer the highest pay and the highest rewards in the sector. And in Canada, this is a vibrant, important sector. It makes up 10% of GDP and 10% of employment. That's 1.7 million workers in Canada. Pays well above average wages. But the pandemic has put a bright light on domestic manufacturing capabilities, I think, around the world. And so I believe that we're in the middle of a manufacturing renaissance, and we need talent, diverse talent, to compete and grow. And attracting more women to the sector is actually critical to our success as a sector. So you can see that companies from software developers and manufacturers to even accounting firms and financial institutions, they're all positioning themselves as technology companies. And this has created a global talent war for STEM graduates. I've read that it's expected by 2030 that 50% of jobs in society will be related to fields of STEM study. And I think we saw that play out in the pandemic and the importance of technology. So women in North America make up less than 25% of science and technology workers, and we're less than 15% of senior managers in those technology companies, and staggeringly, less than 2% of CEOs. So we must fix this broken ladder if more women are going to lead in manufacturing. And our report, which will be released later today, will talk about lead and leadership. So let's move to the next slide and talk about how this needs to change. So I believe fundamentally this needs to change if we are going to engage the full population to solve the most pressing problems on the planet. Let's not forget that 50% of consumers in the world are women. And I spend a lot of time talking to women about getting involved in producing better products that the world needs. We don't want to be passive users. We need to be at the table helping make products better and more sustainable. This is a theme that resonates with women all over the world. You've heard my quote probably in the report or some of the tweets about the report coming out, that the manufacturing sector was designed by men for men and often to keep women out. So we know that men and leaders in the sector want to change this. So how do we make such a transformative change in this old legacy sector? So here's a big one I want you to go away with. I believe that jobs don't have genders. We actually raise our children now to believe that they can do anything. And I believe they can. But societal and business culture still perpetuates gender stereotypes. And that's what we have to deal with. So today I want to spend some time with you to share my thoughts and experiences of both how Canada and my sector have responded to these challenges to elevate women in the economy and attract more women to the manufacturing sector. And I want to start by highlighting my personal corporate view. So let's move to the next slide around equity, diversity, and inclusion, or EDI. So I want to talk about EDI performance. Innovation is the heartbeat of manufacturing, and true innovation requires more than just commitment to diversity. It requires action from our corporate leaders. We've been talking about gender diversity for over 5 decades in Canada, and we still haven't significantly moved the dial in patriarchal institutions like manufacturing. We know that diverse teams are more innovative and more profitable. So it's clear we need to have a clear strategy to win and that we need to start to measure our EDI performance. I believe what gets measured gets managed. That's a fundamental of business. So how do we move past a diversity policy and putting together nice team photos for our websites that show, a handful of diverse looking individuals? I believe the next step is to measure corporate progress on critical EDI metrics. So ask yourself as a leader, are we truly a diverse company? Are we measuring the right things? If we want more women in the workforce, how are we promoting or measuring things like parental leave? And do we have a business culture that supports and celebrates men sharing the role of parental leave? Because I speak a lot about changing the paradigm for women in the economy means we have to shift the domestic paradigm at the same time. So companies need to play a role there. And what's your company doing about mentorship and sponsorship? And what are those metrics? Have you made a meaningful difference in the trajectory of marginalized people in your organization? And how are you measuring that? And most importantly, do we hold our leaders accountable to equity, diversity, and inclusion? Sorry, I'm losing my headset here. As business leaders, we often set our strategies to achieve financial performance. That's fundamental. So how are you going to measure diversity of performance with the same discipline and transparency as your financial performance? We no longer live in a world where we can separate these things or simply check a box and feel that our stakeholders will be satisfied. If we are going to grow and compete and innovate, we need to be playing with a full deck and we need to engage the full population. We need to foster a culture where all employees work towards recognizing and eradicating gender biases and stereotypes and ensure equal opportunity for all in the workplace. So let's move to the next slide, and I'm going to talk a little bit about what we're doing in Canada as a country, and then I'm going to talk about what I'm doing at Canadian manufacturers and exporters. So the past half century has seen major advancements in gender equality and diversity in Canada, but the pandemic has put that progress at risk in our country and others, I'm sure. Canada's challenge now is to ensure an inclusive intersectional recovery that builds a truly equitable society. So progress over the last half century, it's been real. Women have broken barriers and positions in leadership. We've taken on roles as entrepreneurs like myself, scientists, educators, and even CEOs. But there remains a range of gaps and barriers that threatened equality even before the pandemic. So the government's working hard. Recently, to support gender equality and diversity in business, the Canadian government launched something called a 50-30 challenge. And you're going to hear something about this in our report later. The 50-30 challenge, it's an initiative that asks organizations to aspire to gender parity on their boards and senior management and to significant representation of underrepresented groups. So the 50 stands for 50% gender, male and female, and 30% underrepresented groups. So that needs to be the makeup of boards and senior management. And, I think the next step for our country is that, we will look at tax treatment and grants will be applied, more favorably to companies that are getting this right. So that's a role government can play. And we're doing that in Canada. I believe that our signature program, though, in Canada is around our recent announcement of a national childcare strategy, and I'm sure it's made international headlines. Too many families in Canada lack access to affordable, inclusive access to childcare. Parents, especially women, cannot fully participate in the economy, and the global pandemic has brought this issue to the forefront. So the Government of Canada wants to ensure that quality and affordable regulated childcare spaces are available to all families who need it. So Budget 2021 sets a goal of $10 a day childcare within the next 5 years. By building an early learning and childcare system, we will increase women's participation in the workforce and drive strong economic growth across the country. This investment is expected to add almost 250,000 workers in the labor force and raise real GDP by as much as 1.2% over the next two decades. Why do we know this? We know this because this is played out in one of our provinces that was an early adopter to this program. In Quebec, women with children under 3 have some of the highest employment rates in the world. And studies have shown that it's raised Quebec's provincial GDP by 1.7% over the last 20 years. So from a manufacturing perspective, we believe that this program alone, national childcare in our country, will support the addition of 50,000 net new women to the manufacturing sector over the next 5 years, because there's lots of women in precarious employment that can now access affordable childcare and come and join our sector. So I believe Canada is leading the world on gender equality in the economy, and this makes foreign investment in Canadian manufacturing a very attractive proposition. So let's move now to slide 7. I wanted to spend a few minutes talking to you about Canadian manufacturers and exporters and the work that we are doing to lead in women in manufacturing across the country. And we're working with the federal government to do this. So to understand the barriers that women were facing in manufacturing, we conducted a survey in 2017, and we surveyed 850 women across the country, all provinces, all types of manufacturing, all types of jobs, to see what was going on, to see if it was, similar to what we'd seen in other countries and other studies. And so based on our survey and our findings, we've set 5 strategic imperatives where we at Canadian manufacturers do our work across the country to advance women in manufacturing. So what are the 5 things that women are saying predominantly? Women need to see other women succeed. If you can see me, you can be me. Our image, we have an outdated image. There's these misconceptions about manufacturing and who can work there and what it looks like and what it's like. So we need to fix that. And girls, we need to be attracting young girls to enter skilled trades. I think they're less than 5% of skilled trades in our country and less than 25% of STEM. So we have to do a better job of getting them encouraged and in front of those post-secondary streams. So I do a lot of work in that area. And then the last 2 is around, businesses need to create a more inclusive workplace culture, and we need to find creative ways around work-life balance. We hear that over and over again. So for the last 3 years, our national working group has been focused on these imperatives to encourage women to consider careers in manufacturing. And guess what? Our work supported the addition of 42,000 new jobs for women in this sector in 18 months, moving forward on this is moving forward on a participation rate that had been stagnant in Canada for over 30 years. So we hadn't moved the dial on the absolute number of jobs women held in 30 years, and we added 42,000 through our program. So this stuff works. Now the pandemic has set us back, and so I'm going to talk about next steps. But we're making a real difference in Canada. So let's move to the next slide before I close. And I just want to talk about the next steps that we're doing at CME to build on this work and to build back better in Canada, and to build another 100,000 jobs in the sector. That's our goal through our programs. And we know that we can do this because in 18 months before the pandemic, we built in 42,000 jobs. So we're going to improve access to childcare that accommodates parents working in the manufacturing environments, because we know that a production environment is unique, and we have to, have our provinces and countries think about the daycare that can support that. We're going to influence improvements to curriculum to make sure that people are being educated in the kinds of fields that we need in our sector. We're better showcasing advanced manufacturing to sectors through a program we call Open Doors, where we open our factories to students and we bring them in, and the federal government's given us funding to bring young women into our factories and showcase our sector. We're creating networks, peer council networks for women leaders across the country. They can come together and share their stories and their problems and their solutions together. And we have a national training institute in Canada with CME, and we're going to start offering specific leadership training and business services geared to women, because we know we have to move the dial on leadership, women leadership. So, I'm committed to moving the dial for women in Canada and around the world for my sector. And therefore, I continue to lead programs like the Women in Manufacturing, like attracting girls to STEM fields through a group I lead, FemSTEAM, and a lot of general youth awareness to the sector and jobs of the future. I'm very passionate about this, but that's my country. I am so passionate about this. I want to create a challenge today. Internationally, I would like to see the World Manufacturing Forum focus on women in manufacturing and move from this ad hoc white paper focus to a permanent entity focused on education, awareness, and measuring results on policy drivers to help women access, thrive, and lead in the manufacturing sector. So that's my challenge today. I believe when we embed EDI in our corporate and national cultures, we not only move the dial on inclusion, but we create better companies, better communities, better products, and a better outlook for the planet. the business cases there, folks. So in Canada, we aim to add an additional 100,000 women to the sector, net new women to the sector in 5 years, and give women and family the tools to stay connected to high-paying jobs that manufacturing offers. I hope countries around the world will take this bold action relative to their population and leverage the policy drivers in the report being released today to ensure more women access, thrive, and lead in the manufacturing sector. So the next slide is my closing slide, and I just want to thank the World Manufacturing Forum and Christina for inviting me to share my thoughts, and to thank you for engaging in this dialogue today. As you can see on this slide, my motto is, if you can see me, you can be me. And I hope today that I've inspired you enough to challenge status quo and champion diversity and inclusion in your own circles, your own organization, your own country. So thank you again.
Thanks to you, Rhonda. Once again, you have made my task here very easy. You have tackled many of the ideas that I'm going to explain now that are inside our white paper, many of them inspired by you. And also I would like to say that challenge noted. Again, I think this is the aim of our group, and we have been talking about that in our last meetings. That is not a question of white papers, is really we want to move into action. So we will see at the end of the day today new activities for us. And again, also I hope to see you next time here in Italy, but you have to also to know that we are making plans with the World Manufacturing Foundation to make you come also to Bilbao, to the Basque Country. So in a couple of months, you will hear about that too. So let me now move to the next part of the session. So now I'm going to introduce briefly the results of the job that we have done during the last 1 year and a half within this group of experts, women in manufacturing. We started in May 2020, in the middle of the pandemic. The World Manufacturing Foundation has had this idea at that time to start with the project Back to the Future. First part of this Back to the Future was manufacturing beyond COVID-19. And Marco and Marisa asked me to set up a group of experts in order to address this idea of how women could jump in the new paradigm of the new manufacturing that we really need to work towards for the economic recovery. So for me, it was a surprise because, well, I'm a woman, yes. I work in the manufacturing, in the policy area of manufacturing. I've been involved in policy-making activities in a region which is mainly a manufacturing region, so our industrial policy is part of my job. But I've never put these things together. So for me, it's not the case as Rhonda. So I have said before, I have learned a lot from Rhonda, because for me, it was quite new. Now I think about that and I say, how is it possible? Women, industrial policy, why not to match this together? Never thought about it until the World Manufacturing Foundation asked me to organize this group. I have learned a lot, and I think it's a really interesting experience. So I'm going to explain now the result of this 1 year and a half. In fact, this result is in two phases. First phase in this project, Back to the Future, Manufacturing Beyond COVID-19, we produced first white paper, and working or building on results of this first white paper, we have just produced the second one, and is this what I'm going to go through in my presentation. So, well, I don't have to say in this, I don't see anything from here. Well, I don't have to tell you that well, manufacturing in this manufacturing forum, the manufacturing industry is a major driver of global economy. So, of course, both in terms of job and well-being creation, and we really believe that it has a key role in the economic recovery that we need to address. We can, if I move here, it's because, well, I cannot see. Okay. So here it's fine, thank you. Much better that way, because if not, I cannot look at you. So as I say, of course, manufacturing is a major driver, and it has to be right now in the new phase that we are facing now after COVID, not only after COVID, climate crisis, new paradigm, digitalization, sustainability, all the words that we have been listening during today, for example, in the World Manufacturing Foundation. But we see that only 1 in 3 of manufacturing professionals and 1 in 4 manufacturing leaders are women in general, globally speaking. We have the data now from Canada, from Rhonda, but this is part of a study, old one in this case, from 2015, from Deloitte. So with this idea, we started to work also, and now we have also other studies that show that the gender gap has a direct effect on the productivity of companies. So Rhonda also told us about this data in Canada. So there are some studies like this one of 2017 that shows how this direct effect on productivity of companies has a direct effect, of course, in the GDP of countries. So it's clear what is good for gender equality is good for the economy and for the society. So with these ideas in mind, we started this focus group in the framework of the World Manufacturing Foundation with the aim to add to the momentum for closing the gender gap. There are many studies, many relevant organizations, international organizations, talking about the incorporation of women in many aspects of life. But we didn't find a specific activity going on in the manufacturing industry, apart from the one in Canada or what Rhonda has told us. So we really thought when we started our job that we could add to the momentum for closing the gender gap, and we will focus in the manufacturing industry, in the high added value manufacturing industry, because well, this is the area in which many of us, many of the components of the group are working. And also, we wanted to make a difference for the manufacturing industry, and we wanted to propose to the manufacturing industry to promote itself as leader in gender equality policies in the economic activity. Why not? Why not a manufacturing industry designed by men for men could not make this effort to lead the gender equity policies? So our idea, we are very thankful to the World Manufacturing Foundation for this framework of writing papers, but it's not only about writing reports. What we really want to do is engage people, as Rhonda said. So we, during 2 phases of our group, we have incorporated or involved 25 highly qualified persons from 13 different nationalities. Thank you very much to all of them. We have people from all the places that you can see here in the map. Relevant from our point of view is that we have some not pure equilibrium between male and female, but we have some colleagues, men colleagues joining us. And also really relevant for us is that we have this composition of more or less 30% of people working in the 3 main stakeholders that we see are relevant for really implementing the actions that we are promoting. So we have this 32% of our components come from industry, 32 from policy making, international organizations, advocacy, think tanks, and 36% from education and research institutions. I think really this is one of the differences of our group, and the richness, as I said, of our group is this collaboration between the three different kinds of stakeholders. So we started in 2020 analyzing the state of play, and here you can see some of the data that we analyzed and the questions that arose from analyzing this data. So Rhonda also said similar data from Canada, but well, there is a report from the International Labour Organization from this year, 2021, that says that women make up about 47% of the labour workforce, but only 20% of the manufacturing workforce. So first question that appeared in our meetings was why women are not accessing the industry. Also, we saw these figures about how women, well, there are some women at junior level staff, 33% data from this study from the World Economic Forum, 24% of the mid-level staff, only 15% of senior level staff, 9% of CEOs. So next questions that appear in our conversations were when and why do women disappear along the pipeline, and what prevents women from reaching the top levels of leaderships. So as Rhonda also said, and we all members of the group believe, the new manufacturing industry really needs to the untapped potential of women to ensure it gets the talent required to transfer the manufacturing industry to the new age. So with these three main questions in mind, we started to think about these three lines of action: access, thrive, and lead. So when analyzing the first question, why are not women accessing manufacturing industry, one of the first things that appear is something that is very well known, that is the scarce presence of women in STEM. So this has a lot to do with the culture in our societies, and we really need to awaken interest and participation of women in STEM careers from the very beginning of their education. And we have to do it if we really believe that the future of manufacturing has a lot to do with digitalization. The digital gap divide is huge in many places all over the world, and we really need to work this concept of awaken interest and participation of women in STEM careers. In the case of Thrive, we analyzed the current barriers that prevent women to keep on working in manufacturing. The women that access, not many, faced barriers related to working conditions that really required a new, more flexible work models. And we really believe that the pandemic has shown us that there is a possibility of working a different way, more oriented to results, less oriented to presence. And we really believe that this is one of the big barriers to thrive, for women thriving in the manufacturing industry. There are also some barriers related to the working environment. So workplaces are not attractive or designed for women. And we really believe if we are able to overcome these two kind of barriers, not very difficult, something tangible, not really, really difficult, we could really use the talent of women and promote something that is really, really very required in our organizations, that is innovation. And in this case, innovation through diversity. Also, we analyzed what happens with the high-level positions in the manufacturing industry. You have seen that 9% taking into account this report from the World Economic Forum, only 9% of CEOs of manufacturing industry are women. So we have, it's clear that there is a high feminization of the underground economy and the part-time work, which doesn't help to go to thrive, promote, and lead. The occupation of lower level positions in the manufacturing industry, clearly. There is this salary gap compared to peers and fewer opportunities for professional advance. So this ceiling, glass ceiling is really the barrier for women to lead, and we really believe that there should be better conditions and opportunities for women to occupy more positions in leadership. So with these three main areas of action, access, thrive, and lead, in the first edition of our white paper, in the first phase of the work of our group, we analyze the barriers. Also, we look for new opportunities, like, for example, in the case of access, we saw big barrier in the digital gap, but we also saw opportunities in the sustainability, new business models around servitization that could open possibilities for women that are clearly very much oriented to service than to manufacturing. So in the case also of thriving, the working conditions were clearly a barrier, and we saw how more flexibility and equitable workplaces could be an opportunity. And as I said, the pandemic showed us that this is possible. And for leading, we understood that this new model that is required in manufacturing could be an opportunity for women. So we think three big areas of recommendations about creating awareness and communicate the attractiveness of manufacturing. Also, how we can change the mindset towards outcome-oriented results, not presence, and also how to mainstream gender issues in strategies at company level and at policy-making activities. So what we really saw is that could make a difference in a new industrial model that becomes part of the solution from the climate and social crisis. And well, this is what we wanted to develop to a further state in the second phase of our working group. So in this second phase, we'll keep on working. New people joined the group, and we had many meetings, all remote meetings. So today has been my first opportunity to meet 3 of my colleagues from the group, and this remote meeting have given us the idea of organizing all the recommendations that we have in 3 different kind of levels of action. And we decide that there is one clear strategic imperative that is the cultural transformation. So we have this quote here about gender-based discrimination. It starts in early childhood and continues at the school, universities, and the workplace. So for a future where leadership is not associated with any gender, education, training, and professional opportunities must equally empower girls and boys, women and men. We have cultural, domestic, and business barriers to break. So we have to start from this. This is the strategic imperative. We need a cultural transformation that is going to make everything next set of actions much easier. So this is not a sequential model, of course, so we have to work from many different angles. So with this strategic imperative in mind, how can we start changing this cultural mindset? So it's not easy, of course, but we have defined 3 building blocks that could help. And in these three building blocks, you have here also some quotes from our colleagues. First of all, is the contribution of women is already there, but is not yet recognized enough. Once we recognize it, we will give it relevance. So one of the building blocks refers to this statement, to this quote, and is data and research. So we need to measure, we need data that allow researchers to really analyze which is the situation of women in manufacturing, because we have some ideas related, or we have found some reports, but we really need measures implemented, as Rhonda said, in companies, in policy-making activities, and for that it's really relevant to start working with data that allow researchers to improve the analysis of our situation. We also, as Rhonda said, if you can see me, you can be me, is the starting point is to show women have many things to say. So we need role models. And also, manufacturing industry is designed by men for men. So we are not interested in manufacturing industry. We need to make manufacturing industry appealing. This is something for manufacturing leaders. If they really believe, and we want to convince them that this is a question of competitiveness, if they really want their companies to be competitive, they need to attract women. And women are going to be attracted if they show a different working environment, something much more accessible, attractive, that take into account the way of living of women. So with these three building blocks, data and research, role models, and making manufacturing appealing, we think that we can move forward in this cultural transformation. But between this cultural transformation, these three building blocks, we also identify what we have called our 8 game-changing actions. Game-changing, there are sets here in this slide. You can see the sets of game-changing actions for access, thrive, and lead. I'm not going to go into the detail in this presentation because afterwards I would ask my colleagues in the panel to tackle some of these ideas of the game-changing actions, and in any case you can read them in full detail in our white paper that will be published today. As a conclusion, again, what we wanted to translate to the manufacturing leaders, to the policymakers, is this is a matter of competitiveness. Involve women is a matter of competitiveness. There is this study from the Industrial Development Office of United Nations that says that increasing the rate of women in companies improves performance, as it implies higher productivity, better decision-making, different risk management strategies, more innovation, creativity, and increased efficiency. Hence, gender equality no longer remains just a matter of human rights, but a fundamental question to ensure competitiveness and economic recovery. Thank you very much. In this link, you can find the first white paper. I'm sure that you will find the second one soon. The World Manufacturing Foundation is going to make it public in these days during the World Manufacturing Forum, and I really hope that our work makes a difference, at least makes a difference in the perception of the people that are today here with us. And please feel free to contact me. If you want to join us, this is an open platform for everybody, independently of gender, that really wants to make a difference in the manufacturing industry. Not to make a difference only in gender issues, but to make a difference in the manufacturing industry. So thank you very much. I'm going to, thank you. I'm going to come now to the sitting room and invite my colleagues, Luciana and Alina, to join me, and I'm going to greet Cecilia. Cecilia, we are already missing you here. It's a pity that you cannot come next year, and again, you're coming here, but you probably are going also to Bilbao. And well, it's my pleasure to, as I said, to meet for the first time my colleagues. We have had many meetings through a screen. I hate screens forever now, so I'm really very happy to have you with me. So we have now some time, I don't know how much, to have a conversation around some ideas that we came, that we defined during the white paper regarding the game-changing actions. As I said, we have three main kind. What we wanted to, you will see it in the report. We define actions with homeworks for the different kind of stakeholders that we have defined during our process. That are these three big players, so policymakers, international organizations, advocacies, here represented by Cecilia, and industry represented by Luciana, and educational centers, research and educational centers represented by Alina. Well, I have prepared, here it is. I have prepared one question to break the ice, but please feel free to interrupt, to share your thoughts, and feel, the idea is to have now to enjoy this time together. But just as I said, to break the ice, I'm going to start with Cecilia. So I'm going first to introduce Cecilia. Cecilia Guaz Estrada is Director of the Office of Gender Equality and Women's Empowerment at the Industrial Development Office of United Nations, UNIDO. And I have one question for you, that is, cultural transformation within organization is a must if you want women accessing, thriving, and leading in the manufacturing industry. UNIDO is advocating for mainstreaming gender issues in the industrial development projects you are fostering worldwide in order to involve and keep women on board. In your experience, which are the main game-changing actions to fulfill this ambition? Thank you very much, Cecilia.
Thank you, Christina, and thank you very much to the World Manufacturing Forum organizers. I mean, it was in 2018 when I was last in Villa Erba in Chernobyl, and I must say I'm really looking forward to be able to participate in person again. Yet this time, because of conflicting, appointments, I just couldn't make it. But it's really a pleasure to be here, and it's been a pleasure really to participate and collaborate with you in this in the making of these white papers. So let me get into subject, quickly. So I mean, for those who don't know, I mean, UNIDO is the specialized agency of the United Nations that has to do with industrial development. And it is our vision that women and men equally lead, participate, and benefit from industrial development. I must say we are very proud to say at the moment that we, for instance, apply gender mainstreaming principles to all our activities. Every single project that is actually being designed and implemented in the house has to apply this gender mainstreaming approach. And what is it? I mean, gender mainstreaming sometimes a kind of very long and difficult word. So it's basically to say and take into consideration from the very beginning, from the project design to the whole project cycle of what are going to be the differentiated effects on men and women of each and every one of our interventions. This is it. Yeah? So I think this is a way that, sometimes as project managers, we can sort of step back and reflect. Okay, what is it that we are doing? What is what we are trying to really get as a real output? Who are really benefiting from these interventions? So we try to do that. We have a set of tools that, if we had time, we could actually explain what they really consist on. But at the moment we are really applying this gender mainstreaming approach to every project. Normative projects, for instance, those projects that we design in order to support our member states to build up an industrialization strategy. Convening projects, I mean, these projects have to do, for instance, with conferences, webinars, exchange of experiences, and of course, technical cooperation projects, which are actually the most I could say most important in UNIDO portfolio. So for instance, to give you just one example, I mean, UNIDO has a global clean tech innovation program. This program supports the innovative solutions to tackle climate change and environmental degradation. And basically the program tries to provide support, networking platforms, and mentoring opportunities to startups and SMEs, and connects them with potential investors. knowing that, in the case of women, I mean, women are actually usually a bit, I would say, underrepresented when it comes to accessing seed funding and venture capital. Actually, the numbers are quite striking because if we sort of, if we take the recent data from the International Financial Corporation, only 3% of venture capital goes to women-led enterprises. So, for instance, this global think tech program tries to target a little bit, women entrepreneurs, and for instance, as potential investors, and link them with potential investors. For instance, the program in Pakistan has supported so far more than 600 entrepreneurs, and there is a special award for the best women-led startup. Yeah, so this project is really designed from the very beginning to try to see and you sort of make this up for the lack of access that women entrepreneurs and startups have, to access venture capital and get some seed funding. If I may just to abuse a little bit of your time and then I stop. For instance, we know that women are underrepresented in the industry of the future, right? All the sectors that really have to do with technical skills and breakthrough, So basically, for instance, now we have a very long-lasting collaboration with Hewlett-Packard, and this has to do with vocational training. So we try to basically sort of engage with the students and the young entrepreneurs in order to help them build their skills, their IT skills. And for instance, in the case of Tunisia, the application of this program in Tunisia has trained, for instance, so far more than 4,500 women and has helped launching almost 200 women startups. This is to say, we don't do it alone. Yeah? So we basically support the efforts of our member states, the countries, the governments, the ministers of finance that really ask us for support, but we also do it in collaboration with the private sector. In this case, for instance, Hewlett-Packard. Thank you, Christina. Back to you.
Thanks, Cecilia. We will have opportunity to comment later on your plans. I think that really UNIDO is doing a great job in many aspects, and I'm really happy to see that gender issues are on top of your agenda. So it's really, really interesting. So I'm going now to introduce second speaker of our panel. This is Alina. Alina Sogner is Assistant Professor of Applied Data Analytics at John Cabot University in Rome and Research Fellow at the Institute for the World Economy, in Kiel, Research Affiliate at the Institute of Labor Economics. So as I said, well, we are trying to separate like the three big areas of activity, but all of us are completely, as you said, Cecilia, nobody can work alone, and this is the richness of this collaboration. So it's not only Alina representing research and education centers. I know that you have many ideas of cross-collaboration between the different actors, but we really wanted to tackle with Alina the case of accessing, and as we have seen, one of the most important game-changing actions that needs to be implemented in engaging girls in STEM. In that sense, the role of educational institutions is key in promoting and implementing measures to allow female students to improve their skills portfolios. Could you share with us any measures that you know to help these female students improve?
Yeah, so thank you so much, Christina, for inviting me to be part of this excellent group. And we know many colleagues from the group. We have collaborated in the past, and also with the UNIDO. We have together published several studies on women in manufacturing, particularly the role of digital technologies for empowering women in manufacturing. So this is a collaboration that we have had since quite a long time, so I'm very happy to be part of this group. So in terms of the access and how we can promote women's access to the manufacturing, I would like to remind ourselves that manufacturing is not one sector. We have many sectors, subsectors within the manufacturing sector. And some subsectors of the manufacturing sectors, such as textile industry, have been very I would not say gender equal, because gender equality is something which is also which regards gender pay gaps and the participation in the leadership positions, but the female participation in the manufacturing, in the textile manufacturing sector has been quite high. So it's more than 50% of females who are participating in the textile industry. So we have such examples of a relatively high participation of women in manufacturing. And now we can ask ourselves, why is this the case in the textile industry but not in other industries? And in order to understand that, we have to take a historical perspective. We have to see how this has developed over time. And by the way, at the dawn of the first industrial revolution, the textile industry was a male-dominated industry. There were males participating in this industry. But then the society has discovered that they cannot afford any longer to leave women outside of the manufacturing or outside of the textile industry. Because there were a lot of jobs for males, for instance, in the army, but also in the agriculture. And so this is how women entered the textile industry first. So in other words, we have a long history of female participation in this industry, which we did not have in other industries, in other manufacturing sectors. In fact, in other manufacturing sectors, certain occupations have been prohibited. There were legal restrictions for women to participate in those occupations, usually because there were concerns about health risks. Usually these legal restrictions were related to protection of women's health. And by the way, we still have certain occupations in certain countries that are not accessible to women. And one thing which I want to highlight is that there is one interesting characteristic of cultures. Cultures are very sticky in the sense that they cannot be changed very quickly. We can change institutions maybe overnight. We have, this examples of how formal institutions, laws can be changed. We can adopt technologies, but it's very, very difficult to change the culture. And so the reason for why women experience difficulties in accessing certain manufacturing industries is, first of all, the culture. That's why one of our main messages in our white paper is our imperative is cultural transformation. So, in order to come to your question, back to your question, Christina, I think that in order to improve the skills of girls, of women, to empower them, to enable them to participate in manufacturing industries, we have to start very, very early in the lives of girls, because some job opportunities are very obvious to children. When you ask children, what do you want to be when you grow up? Usually they say, well, I want to be a teacher, because they have so many teachers, role models around them, or they want to be a medical doctor. But some job opportunities are not obvious even for teenagers, because some jobs are hidden somewhere in between of the supply chain, right? So they're not directly obvious to the end users, to the consumers. And I think that we have to collaborate very closely with the industry, with the representatives of the industry. There should be a very close collaboration between educational institutions already very, very early in schools, and also, of course, in the universities, in order to, first of all, to show those job opportunities, to make them explicit to young children, to young girls. And we also have to look at motivations. So we have to ask ourselves, why do girls prefer not to choose jobs in manufacturing. So one reason, as I mentioned, is because these job opportunities are not obvious to them. But even if they are obvious to them, there are stereotypes. Usually jobs in manufacturing are perceived as not flexible, quite dangerous, health risks, dirty. But we know nowadays that the manufacturing industry is experiencing a transformation, digital transformation. It's going to be green, so clean jobs. And this is something that has to be highlighted, something that has to be made explicit to young people. So I believe that one part of this story which is very important in order to empower women is to talk about how the industry is changing, how the jobs are getting more accessible to women, more attractive to women. If I may just, I know I talk already a lot, I just want to make one important issue is that what is very important to girls when they choose careers, they want to have some flexibility. And jobs in the manufacturing are local. So industry is usually something which is local, which is embedded in the region, in a certain region. So if girls have these role models in their region where they grow up, probably a career in this sector is nothing strange to them, so they are more likely to choose jobs in this area in manufacturing. But if you grow up in a region where there is no industry, well, this is something which is not very obvious to you. And this will apply that even if you choose the job in that industry, you will have to move to another region. So usually women have more responsibility for elderly relatives, responsibilities related to family, child raising, and this is something which makes them less mobile. So, and this might be, implication of digital transformation for empowering women in manufacturing could be to provide opportunities for remote access, for more flexible jobs in the industry. So this is something which will make jobs more attractive for women in this area. So Christina, for now I stop here. And
yes, you will have opportunity to go again. Okay, so now Luciana, let me introduce you Luciana Ciceri, which is CEO of Ciceri de Mondale, and also is representing here Confartigianato, Lombardia, that is part of this 30% of our colleagues in the group that are practitioners. So they are really, they have leading positions. Many of them, we have also some men in leading positions in the industry, but Luciana is one of their representatives. We have here with us also Laura and Roberta, that they are the practitioners of our theories and policy makings in the industry. So it's a pleasure, Luciana, to have you here. In both previous participation of Cecilia and also Alina, both of them talked about collaboration, so really important. We have seen relevant. UNIDO is collaborating with companies when in their projects in different countries. Educational institutions need to collaborate with industry. But industry need to work and make profits and earn money, and you usually don't have many time for collaborations in some environments. So this is a real challenge because we really need the implication of industries in all the areas of action that we are promoting. And well, it's, this is one of the things that we really would like to thank you only for participating with us in our group. It has been very interesting. I don't know if you want to comment on some of the ideas that have already been debated, or please feel free to tell us your experience.
Yes, Thank you very much, Christina. I'm so honored and excited to be here with you today and to meet you finally in person. And to talk after all of you is a challenge for me because Rhonda, for example, she's so inspiring and she's such a strong and talented woman that it's really difficult to talk after her and after all of you. If I can add something, but it's what you already said and it's written in the white paper, the real barrier for women is a cultural barrier. And it's so difficult and it takes such a long time to overcome this. But I think all of us, really all of us, not only men, but also us, we really need to go beyond all the gender bias. Because they're so deep within our culture that it's really difficult to go beyond. And so what we really need for something to actually change is a really deep cultural change. And also a higher degree of awareness among women. Because I really think that sometimes we're not completely aware of our potential. I'm talking about our age. I'm very sure that the younger women are much stronger and much more determined, but we need to be aware of our potential. And personally, and on behalf of API and Confartigianato, the association I have the honor to represent here today, I'm very much in favor of all the training and all the program to empower women that are being held. Because we really need this training and empowerment program to feel more confident. And considering the relevant group of stakeholders that we looked in the paper, and focusing on two spheres, the educational and research institutions and industry and industrial association, which I'm representing, it's important to develop this training and put them in place, and to ensure equal consultation with women, because sometimes men tend to be louder, and we are less loud, and so it's difficult to make us be understood. And to create a campaign that has the goal of placing women in senior position and to increase diversity in boardrooms. And I really believe that gender diversity, job-wise, means to have equal job, equal opportunities, and it also means equal risks. As you were saying before, maybe there are jobs in manufacturing that are not so clean, are not so digitalized yet, but we need to have equal risk, and to share equal responsibility. And so only with this equality we can also reach leading positions. And then, of course, we need equal salaries. That's the consequence. Obvious, but it's not obvious, but not. It's not always as obvious as it should. It's not the case. Should be, because it's obvious. Should be, and it's not. How is it possible? But if we're asking ourselves, why do you need all of this? Why do we need more women in power, more women in leading position, and more women in manufacturing? As it was said before, it's because data show that more women on board means better performance. So it's clear. As Rhonda said before, we need new KPIs. We need to measure this. And this is the next step, I guess. Yes, this is something that we have talked with Cecilia also, the need of indicators about the performance of companies with women on board, with women in leading positions, in decision-making positions. And Cecilia was proposing in our last conversation to
to work in this direction, because you really need that. No, Cecilia, you told us about indicators.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's a very, very important point, Christina, because what we don't measure doesn't exist, right? I guess that's one of the most striking facts. Is sometimes surprising that even just disaggregating data by sex, in terms of number of employees or again recipients of credits, is very difficult to come about. In many circumstances, not to talk about the whole world and try to have comparative data, because that's very difficult. I mean, there are some organizations, of course, that make a very, very strong effort in order to gather, this data around the world, but, we still need to do more, and we need to do more in terms of surveys. Yeah, because sometimes also when we remain at the level of aggregates, it's very difficult to really understand what is really going on, and what is, again, the differentiated the contribution, that men and women are making in particular sectors of industry.
Okay, thank you. And also, Luciana, you talked in our last meeting, I remind about visibility, because something that you said is that, well, we are not many, but we are women in the industry, but it's like nobody sees us.
Yes, I think we have, what we need is more recognition.
More recognition.
Yes, to be more visible and to be recognized for what we do, because we work day by day. We are women in manufacturing.
Yes, yes.
And if I can add something again, why do I think that really manufacturing needs women? Is because we're really living in a disruptive era. We are living in a time in which society and technology are changing so fast that for business it's difficult to keep on. And so we need manufacturing industry more than any other sector needs all the different point of views, all the competencies, all the skills, all the differences to cope with it. Because the challenge is enormous. And you were saying before, what can we do? What can manufacturing industry do to attract women? And I think that we have to show that manufacturing is not only plants, it's not an oily compound, but it's something that goes into the future. It's really evolving. And what can we women give to this sector? We can give our different point of view, our caring approach. And so we can go really together towards sustainability and towards a sustainable growth that has to be economic, social, and environmental. And I think there's a lot of space for women to prove their competencies, our competencies.
During the first phase of our work, it was in the middle of the COVID crisis, and we analyzed we had the examples of policymakers leading countries that had a different approach towards the health crisis and a more successful one. So this was something that we discussed, how to move this concept of women leaders have a different approach that is not necessarily worse, and in many cases much better, because we have a better understanding of the broad value creation, not only the economic creation.
In fact, as is written also in the right paper we wrote, Forbes, the magazine Forbes, described the women leadership during the pandemic, but it's always like this, as caring, truthful, concrete, specifically focused, but also people-oriented, caring and loving, and all of these are characteristics that are always useful in leading a company, not only during a pandemic. fortunately.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So, Alina, you working with girls in STEM and entrepreneurs, how can we move forward? How can we, engage them? Maybe it's a better word.
Yeah, so it's not really a matter of differences in skills, because girls are doing better in terms of grades. They get better grades also in math, technical subjects. But for some reason, they do not pursue those careers. So there is certain discontinuity in this respect. And so I believe that this is not the matter of human capital, but it's the matter of social capital. This is because they lack role models in the families, which are very important in the beginning when they start to think about their careers, even before they start to think about their careers. And so if this is the issue of social capital and networks, I believe that the only way, or one of the ways which are important to solve the issue, is to empower them by strengthening their social networks. And one way of doing so, again, I'm getting back to this argument that I've presented before, it is very crucial to have a collaboration between the academia and the manufacturers, between the employers and educational institutions. How could that look like? Well, for instance, this could be joint projects where certain problems can be presented to the students, and female students, for instance, work under the mentorship of a more experienced professional from the manufacturing sector and try to solve this problem. It could be an internship, for instance, where girls can again be invited under the certain mentorship of, again, women, because it's important that they can associate themselves with a role model. Otherwise, the role model will not be a powerful role model. So it needs to be a role model which is not, not a star, which usually feels to be very, very distant from you. So it should be someone who comes maybe from your region or had very similar initial conditions and arrived there, and basically who can bring you there, who show you that, well, you can do it. It's easy. So I think that there could be several types of collaboration. First of all, it is important for the educators to understand what the manufacturers are looking for, because everything is changing so fast, and the educational curricular does not change very fast. Right? So this is an issue, and something that educators should work together with the manufacturers, with the employers, to understand what is in demand right now. And then within the educational institutions, we can make assessment of the gender gaps in skills and maybe develop programs specifically designed to girls to empower them in that respect. So this would be one type of collaboration. Other type, which I mentioned before, is directly between students and employers, for instance, in terms of internships or class-based projects where you work not on a certain project which was made up for you by your professor, which doesn't have to do anything with the reality, but here your maybe future employer, maybe someone who inspires you, provides you with a research question, with a certain problem, very, very, narrowly defined problem, but they already see, wow, that's relevant. That is something which, if I provide an answer to this problem, I will change something in the world, right? I will contribute to whatever, a new product development or, I don't know, market research or whatever. So it should be relevant to them. And another part, well, maybe there should also be training for teachers. I've heard about this idea in one of the previous sessions, which I liked a lot. And the suggestion was to, teachers basically are those who, promote certain stereotypes and maybe tell the girls to do one thing and not the other. So maybe it should also be something designed for teachers, certain workshops or whatever, certain educational, events. So there are several opportunities how we can collaborate with the industry to promote women in particular, girls, future employees in this respect. If I may to add something.
Of course.
Also when we discuss the future of manufacturing and the role of women in manufacturing, we cannot forget about female entrepreneurship. Because this is one of the main ways to empower women, and worldwide we have less female in entrepreneurship than males, and this is particularly the case in the manufacturing sector. Why? Well, several reasons, stereotypes, culture, of course, but another important issue is financial capital. Women are usually, they usually lack collateral to secure their loans, for instance, or there are cultural issues that maybe their male relatives do not want to provide, their shared collateral for their projects, for their ideas, for startups. So this is something which could be solved, hopefully, by means of novel financial financing models, maybe from the area of fintech. There were examples of very interesting projects to promote female entrepreneurship by means of analyzing the data, data capital, data provided by women who usually do not have a security collateral in the form of property, for instance. So this data can be analyzed in order to understand the likelihood of, credit worthiness of women, and it was shown that the likelihood of receiving a loan has increased by 50% in women who provided their data from transactions, for instance, or any other digital data. So this is something which could be explored as an alternative financial instrument, tool to empower female entrepreneurship. But also, a very short addition to that, nowadays what is important in female entrepreneurship, another gender gap, let's say, entrepreneurship is female digital entrepreneurship. So this is something which is about creating a digital product or an added value which is completely digital. So it's not about selling your goods on a digital platform, it's about creating an app or a platform. So, or maybe using by means of blockchain technologies, and this is something which has been identified as digital entrepreneurship has been identified as an important vehicle behind the digital economy growth. And probably we're going to experience a huge gender gap here because the skills that are needed for digital entrepreneurship are very much different from the skills that are needed for traditional entrepreneurship in the offline economy. And usually the skills are related to cybersecurity, the knowledge of management information systems, computer science, and this is where we unfortunately have huge gender gaps. So this is something to expect in the future, that we're going to have a new gender gap in female digital entrepreneurship.
Again, this is something also related with something that Luciana said at the end of all these difficulties or barriers for women, there is kind of lack of self-security. I mean, I don't know if this is the correct expression in English, but we have sometimes this lack of security in ourselves to speak louder, to ask for loans, and so because it's like it's not our place to be. So in this direction is relevant what we have been talking in our meetings about role models, about making more clear that the manufacturing industry, the entrepreneurship, the STEM careers is also a place for women. So everywhere is place for women. It's not that a board of directors of a big company is not a place for women. So this is something that we need to change. And again, we come back to our strategic imperative, the cultural transformation is so relevant.
Yeah.
Yes, this lack of confidence is not fancy anymore.
Yes, lack of confidence is probably the sentence. I don't know, Cecilia, if you want to add something, please?
Yes, of course. No, I think I quite like the conversation. I fully support what has been, sort of mentioned by Alina in terms of the importance of promoting entrepreneurship among women, digital entrepreneurship among women, and also the reality that was describing Luciana. So actually, maybe on that side, I think one of the things that we also need for this cultural transformation is basically trying to create enabling environments for women within the companies, within the firms. Because I think that's, this kind of a very more micro, more organizationally oriented on how to really sort of recruit, keep, and then promote women within the organizations as a way of giving them careers, right? Because I think that's one of the things that we discuss also extensively, Christina. I mean, now that you are talking about lack of confidence, for instance, when it comes to recruitment, sometimes just reading at the way that the job descriptions have been written puts women off. And it's proven that women, unless they really feel that they can sort of fit into 90% of the competencies that are required for the job, they will not apply. Yeah? Men can do that with kind of 30-40% is okay. If I can more or less then make it during the interview, it will be fine. So women lack of confidence is that we are very exigent with ourselves. We really feel that we need to prove things even further, in order to be able to be competent and, and have a proper presence at work. So, for instance, these issues of revisiting the way that job descriptions are done is very important, because when you really want women to apply, you need to make sure that this is not gender blind and it's really appealing to the way women sort of consider themselves on the work. Other things that sometimes also matter is the way that you conform panels, for instance, to recruit people. It's really important that, if you really want to attract women candidates and you want women candidates to make their best, you have more or less gender balanced panels. So that women walk into a job of industry and you don't find like 5 men that are going to be asking the questions, for instance. And these kind of things that sometimes look like small changes, but as some of you, somebody of you was saying, culture is something very sticky and takes lots of time and lots of awareness and effort to change. Sometimes you face resistance just even from within the human resources department. Say, but why do I have to change it? I've been doing this way for many years. So I say, because what you really want is to change the results. And if you are not being able to capture women as attention and, sort of hire women, it's because of that. And not to talk about, of course, enabling conditions like, flexibility at work, family-friendly policies that also sort of support, the notion that, women are not the only caretakers at home, right? That this task can be perfectly shared by men. So you need to provide flexibility for both of them. You need to provide parental leave for men and women. You need to be able to give flexible working arrangements to men and women in order to break that kind of tradition that those who need flexibility are women, so those who can work part-time are women because they have to take care of the house.
Thanks, Cecilia. We have 2 more minutes. I don't know if Luciana, please go ahead.
I very much agree on what she said. Great. I really think that manufacturing industry needs women, because manufacturing industry is facing great problems. It's really under pressure because of lack of raw materials, shortage of raw materials, energy prices increasing. So really, manufacturing industry, more of every other sector, need all the different point of views, all the different energies, all the resilience. And I'm talking about not being as strong as steel, but being as strong as water. All the, you know what I mean? The transformative resilience to cope with the challenges we are facing. And where can we find this different point of views, this energy? Everywhere, but not only in an industry designed by men for men, but including diversity, every kind of diversity. And so we have to become more attractive.
Yeah.
So while, okay.
So thank you very much. I don't know if, we have, we are running out of time. Thank you very much. I would like to ask for a big applause for our panel. I would like to ask you for a big applause to my colleagues from our office here in Milan. My colleagues Ainara and Ollane, that they are supporting me in all the work of the Women in Manufacturing from our office here, Basque Trade and Investment Office in Milan. Thank you very much. And also a big applause for our technicians that are really supporting us in this hybrid moment. Thank you very much. It has gone perfectly, and it has been a pleasure to collaborate with you. So, very happy to see you in presence. Very sorry not to see you and Rhonda, but next time we will reunite together. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.